Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney Klingscales. I am a product and marketing coordinator at Scriptation. I am also a television director with over 10 years of experience directing and producing commercials, documentaries, promos, a lot of behind the scenes, and even episodic work. I'm really excited to share my love for Scriptation. It was the first app that I ever used when I was directing my first episode of TV, and it saved me in more ways than one. So as I go through this Scriptation 101 tutorial, please feel free to ask questions. I'm happy to answer them live and also leave some room at the end of this to answer any questions that you have. So today I am going to start with sharing my screen. I'm sharing my iPad screen, which is how I like to use Scriptation, but I also want to let you know that you can use your iPhone and also your Mac laptop. Scriptation is available on all three of those devices, and pretty soon in the near distant future, we will also be available on Android. But for now, when I'm on set and when I'm working within Scriptation, I like using my iPad because I have my Apple Pencil in my hand, and it's like having a piece of paper in my hand. So this is Scriptation. One of the great things about Scriptation is that once you get your script, when you are in pre-production, if you are a screenwriter and you've written your script in Final Draft or Writer's Duet and you export it to a PDF and you're ready to send it out for notes, or maybe it's time to hear your script read aloud to you, almost like having a table read in your pocket. The first thing I do is I open up my Scriptation and I open up this side panel here, which allows me to create a file tree. Just like if you're using Dropbox or Google Drive or any sort of cloud syncing service, you can go ahead and make folders within Scriptation, and you can make an endless amount of subfolders that keeps things organized. So I'll show you what that looks like. If I open up a folder that I've created, you can see that I've created subfolders for my script, for my director's plans, but other ways that I see filmmakers use folders is by creating subfolders for scenes. You can even create subfolders for your call sheets, for your casting documents. The world is your oyster here. So I'm going to go into my Scriptation folder, and as you can see, I have a bunch of documents that I've created to show you all how I use Scriptation. Welcome to draft one of my script that I'll be breaking down today, which is Revisions, written by humans at Scriptation. This is what I am calling my table draft. So it's time for me as a director to start breaking that down. What does that look like, and what do I mean by that? When you work in film, TV, any sort of scripted narrative world, once you get your script, you start thinking about, okay, how can I make this story come to life? How can I make the words on this page visual? And so Scriptation, which is an industry standard app for breaking down your scripts, marking them up, taking notes, transferring your notes, and a bunch of other things, that allows me as a director or any craft, if I'm a DP, if I'm art department, if I am a producer, if I'm an assistant director, this allows me to do all the work that I would do or that I used to do in a bunch of different apps, a bunch of different tabs, all right within one app. So I'm going to start with showing you annotation mode. So once you open up Scriptation, if I click here on the annotate mode, that is going to pull up a bunch of different tools that I can use to start marking up my script. I'll go through these pretty quickly because they're pretty self-explanatory. This first one here is what we call our highlight tool. So if I click that, I can easily highlight anything that I want. For me, what I like to do when I'm breaking down my scripts is I can see this first scene is an interior on a soundstage. It's specifically on a spaceship set, and it's also morning. So let's say I want to quickly have a visual indicator to let me know what scenes take place during the day and what scenes take place during the night. So I'm going to come here into this little menu that allows me to change the color of my highlight. And I'm going to change it to yellow. And then now I can do the same thing, highlight that scene header. And that's how I like to quickly indicate the time of day for my scene. The next thing that we have here is an underline tool. That's pretty self-explanatory. I can take my pencil or my finger and I can underline anything that I need to. And the same way that I can change the color for my highlighter tool, I can also change the color for my underlining tool. Very similarly, we have a strike through tool. What I like to do when I'm going through and reading my script, if I'm like, this line could be written better, it could sound a little bit more organic coming out of the actor's mouth. So for things that I like to change, I go through and I strike through it. And then I come over here into my pen tool. And then I will just literally write whatever note I need to communicate to whoever has written the script that line, I would love for it to be rewritten. If you have sloppy handwriting like me, of course, you can create a text box. So if I come here into the text box, it pulls up my keyboard. I can do the same thing and indicate whatever sort of note that I need. I can adjust the size. I can adjust the font. I can also adjust the color and whether or not I want it to have some sort of background fill. So we make it so that you can do anything that you would be able to do with a real pencil and a real piece of paper right within your app. Another cool thing that I like to show is our sticky note feature. So if I click the sticky note at the top in the annotation menu, I can literally put that sticky note wherever I want to on my script. Let me just put it right here. And then I can write a note that is only visible to me. So let's say this scene, I need to be out of there by a certain time. So I'm going to say 1 hour. That's how long I have to shoot this scene. Then what I like to do is click this little paintbrush tool here. That allows you to change what the icon for your sticky note looks like. Right now I have a question mark, but let's just go and make it a sticky note. I can also change the color just like I can with any of my other notes. And then boom, now I have a note that is only visible to me when I click into it on my iPad. Another way I've seen people use the sticky note tool is like, let's say you're on set and people are looking over your shoulder, trying to see what you want to do, but you might not want your notes to be public. Maybe they're private. Maybe it's something very sensitive. That's how I also use the sticky note feature. I've already showed you the pin tool. It also has a drop-down feature that allows you to choose a freeform highlight. I can come here into my inspector tool. I can change the color of the highlight. I can, of course, change if I want there to be a background, opacity, thickness, etc. And that just allows me to, pretty self-explanatory, highlight as if I was using a real highlighter. So the world is your oyster there as well. The next thing I'm going to show you is our shape tool. So if I click into here, I can have already pre-made an arrow, a line, a circle, or rectangle. And this is how I personally like to use those shapes. So I have brought in what we call a director's plan, which is an overhead map of a set, whether that be on a stage or maybe that is on location. And I like to go in and use circles, and I change the color for my circles to indicate where I have my actors. I'm going to adjust this to be standard. And then I'll come in and I'll change it to blue. And now this is my character A and this is my character B. And then I go in and use my arrow tool, and I will use those same color coding methods to indicate where I have my actors exiting or entering from, which is what we call blocking. Sometimes, like let's say I need to indicate a part of the scene that is not available. to me during this set or during the shoot. So I can use my line tool for whatever I need. This is letting me know that I'm not going to be shooting in this direction. And again, the world is your oyster there. So that's how I like to use the shape tools, but you can also do that on any page. It doesn't just need to be on your director's plans. You can do the same thing on your script page. So then right next to our shape tool, we have an image tool. This allows you to bring in images, whether you take them directly on your actual device or whether or not you bring those in from your photo library. So if I go into my photo library here, I have some images that I set up. And let's say Daniela, like this is who I want to be a reference for Daniela. I want her to have beautiful natural hair. I want her to have very beautiful jewelry and to have a certain sort of look. So sometimes I'll bring in images like that. The other thing I'll do sometimes is actually bring in storyboards. So I also have some of those there. If I go into my photo library, here I have a storyboard that I pulled from one of my favorite shows, and I can also put that wherever I need to on the script. And then that will help me figure out how I want to shoot things. So as you can see, like the reason why we have these annotation tools are to help you create the words on the page into a visual map for you to be able to direct or shoot or, design in whatever way you need to. So right next to our image tool at the top here is a stamp tool. So if I click into that, you can see that Scriptation comes with some already created stamps that you can use for whatever you need. Sometimes I'll bring in this little check mark to let me know visually that I have already shot this scene. We're moved on to the next scene. If I am a producer, sometimes I will use these things to let me know that something is actually cleared from standard and practice or our legal team. The world is your oyster there. But the other thing that you can do within the stamp tools, you can actually create custom stamps. So if I come down here into custom, it will ask me what I want the text to be. So let me just say my text is going to be sticks. I can change the color to whatever I want. Let's go with green. And then I can also add other sort of like date or time if I need to. That's not applicable for me here. And then I will go in and bring in a stamp like that. So that way, when we're shooting that scene, I can quickly tell my DP or my operator how we are shooting this next setup. Then, if I don't want to have to create this stamp over and over and over, I can click right here into the save option. And now, when I come into the drop-down of my stamp menu, I can go into the saved annotations. And as you can see here, I've created a bunch of annotations that are just available to me that I can just click on, and then it will pull up on my script. I see people create stamps for visual cues, for sound cues. You can create a stamp like I just showed you how to create a character using our shape tool. I have also created some stamps for my characters. So let's say my character's name is Jessica. I'll draw like the first letter of their name and I'll save that. That way, when I'm doing all my blocking, I don't have to keep creating that character over and over and over again. So yeah, you can save anything. You can save images. You can save sound files that you bring into your script. Again, the world is your oyster there as well. And then right next to that is our eraser tool. That's pretty self-explanatory. Anything I've drawn, I can go ahead and erase. But if I click into that drop-down menu, we have a selection tool. So let's say I want to move a bunch of annotations all at the same time. I can select all of them. And now I have the option to move all of them at the same time. Or if I only want to move a couple of things, I can come here. I can come out of that. And then I can go back into my selection tool. And now let's say I just want to move that around. I have the option to do that as well. Just like in Photoshop and InDesign or any of those Adobe programs, I can also group annotations together. So let's say I'm always going to come back to this specific annotation. That's something I can do there as well. If anybody has any questions about the annotation mode, feel free to drop those on the chat and I'll make sure that I answer those questions. So I'm going to Movie Magic show you a layer that I've created with all my directing notes for this script already done, to just show you an example of what it looks like once you've gone through and you've marked up your script using all the annotation tools. As you can see here, I've done all my blocking, I've drawn where my cameras are, I have a bunch of images that I've brought in, sticky notes, anything that I need to reference when I'm directing that specific scene. So what is a layer? What's really cool about Scriptation is that it allows you to create layers. Think Photoshop, where you can have different layers and move only that layer around. You can do a pass of your notes on an individual layer. So if I open up my layers menu, you can see here that I've created a layer for my directing notes. That's what we're looking at right now. I also have a layer for production notes where I've gone in and I've made specific notes for my producer. I've created a layer for tone notes. If you're not familiar in the world of television, once you've done all your prep, it's time to have a meeting with your showrunner where they teach you about the subtext, like the things that are not on the page that you need to know, any sort of tonal shifts. That's important for you to be able to capture with your actors today, et cetera, et cetera. I have a layer for my art department notes. So that way, when I'm in my production meeting with my art department and they're asking me questions or asking me what sort of preferences I want as a director, as you can see here, I've asked, like, what's the flooring color going to be? It might be important for me to know based upon a color palette I've created. If there are certain props within the script, I indicate where I want those to be. So that way on the day, the set decorator knows exactly where to put it. I have a sticky note in here where I've created a note that says my character could be sitting on the floor surrounded by stacks of paper, or he could have stacks of paper on his hand. Thoughts? That's a question I can ask to my production designer, my set decorator, my art department, etc. And then I can take that information and pass it along to my camera team. I also have a layer here for tags, and I'm going to show you what tagging looks like. So I'll come back here into my blank layer. And now I'm going to go into the tagging menu. So tagging allows us to do breakdowns, physical breakdowns of the script, where I go through and I tag different production elements to different production categories. What does that look like? So if I come up here into the inspector tool again, as you can see here, Scriptation has some pre-created categories, different heads of department, if you will, that I need to communicate with. I have an option to tag cast. I have the option to tag medical and camera and props and stunts, visual effects, makeup, you name it. Let's say I need to tag something that is not already created in this menu. I can come over here into this customize menu at the top. And as you can see here, I can add a category. So let's say this specific set has intimacy and I need an intimacy coordinator. I can go ahead and write intimacy, save that as a category. Oh, I guess I've already created it. Let's come down there. Lost in the sauce, of course. I'll just create a different one. There we go. Now I have a new tagging category. I can also change whatever I want that highlight color to be for that specific category. And then I go in and I start tagging up my script. So in scene 2, interior production office morning, Paolo and Giovanni frantically collate paper scripts next to the copier. Rob bursts through the door, knocking into Paolo. A rainbow of pages go flying. So the first thing that I see is that there's a lot of cast in this scene. So I go through and I tag my cast. Then I have a bunch of props. So I'm going to tag paper scripts and rainbow pages specifically. I see something for set decorations. I'm gonna come in here to set dressing and tag copier. I've missed a cast. Rob is in this scene as well. What else do we have here? So I have another prop here. There's some freshly printed triple goldenrods. Have another cast here, Melissa. You get the picture. If there was a stunt here, I can tag that to stunts. If there was some sort of visual effects, I can tag that as well. So movie magic, I'm going to come into my already fully tagged script. As you can see here, I've tagged everything. Harried and underslept crew. That to me goes into the makeup department, because if my crew is underslept, my background extras, they might need some makeup to indicate that they haven't really slept. Crew, that's background extras. A standing set, I've tagged that to construction. Captain's uniform, I've tagged that to costumes. Highlights, I've tagged that to props. Another thing that you can tag, going back to that sticky note feature, is scene description. So I go through each scene and I write just a sentence or two about what that scene is about. If I've brought in images here using the image tool, like I showed you before, I can also tag those images. So this is the spaceship set. This is my reference image for what I want that to look like. I've pulled that in from ShotDeck, another friend of ours, another app that we love using. And I've tagged that specifically to construction, because my art department is going to be creating that set for me from scratch. And this is my reference image for what I want that to look like. I have another makeup tag here because Tim's eyes well up with tears, so we might need something to help us out if Tim is not able to produce tears on the day. You get the picture. So once I've tagged up my entire script, then I come up here into this reports menu, and it allows me to export a bunch of different things. I can export a breakdown summary, which I'll show you here in a second. I can also export an element report, which is just like the breakdown summary, except it doesn't go scene by scene. It goes production element by production element. I can also export a category report. So let's say I only want to export the props. I want to have a cheat sheet for all of the props in the entire script, scene by scene. I can do that as well. And then we have some really fun and great integrations with some other apps on the market, such as Synapse, which helps you with scheduling, Set Hero, which helps you create your call sheets, and then Shot Lister, which is pretty self-explanatory, helps you export your shot lists. So all of this work that I've done breaking down the script, I can easily just export into that app, and then it will open up in that app without me having to do any extra work. So what does a breakdown summary look like? I am going to go into one that I've already exported. And as you can see here, once I've tagged up my scripts, now I can go scene by scene, and I can see my cast, I can see my camera, I can see my props, stunts, makeup, costumes. This is huge for me as a director, because if you're not familiar, whenever you go into production, you have a really big production meeting. And all of your heads of department are there, and they are firing 1,000,001 questions at you. They're going to say, Whitney, what do you want the props to be in the first scene? What do you want that to look like? What are you thinking for the costumes? Like, have you had a chance to read that scene yet? Set dressing is going to be there asking, like, what colored pages would you like for the script? If I have any picture vehicles, if I have any sort of sound effects that I need to include, if I have any sort of visual effects, somebody's going to ask me how many background extras I want into a certain scene. So if I've done my job and I've tagged up my script, now I can just go through scene by scene and I look really prepared. I can say, you know what? Paolo, Giovanni, Rob, Franco, Melissa, they're all in scene 2. How much time do we have with them? Does anybody have a hard out? Or is anybody coming in late? For my props, I'm thinking I want pink and yellow and blue. I think that'll look great. Stunts, do we need a stunt coordinator? Because Rob is going to bust through the door and he's going to knock into another character. It might be good to have a stunt coordinator on the day. So This is a tool that's just there to help you be more prepared, more efficient, and work 10 times faster than you would if you were doing everything manually by hand on a paper script. Okay, so I've done all of my layers, I've done all of my tagging, I have my breakdown summary, I have all my shot lists together. I'm feeling so good because I start shooting tomorrow. It's time to go to bed. I'm gonna get extra hours of sleep. And then I get an email. Draft 2 is in, and there's been a bunch of changes to my script. So when that used to happen, I used to have a panic attack. I used to have a headache because now I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to go into my set tomorrow and like fumble through my pages and figure out what I'm about to do. But Scriptation. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up draft 2. As you can see here, it's completely blank. And now, rather than having to do all that manual work again, with just one click of a button, I can transfer my notes. What does that look like? So I'm going to come up here into our transfer menu, the top. It's going to ask me what draft I want to transfer my notes from. So I'm going to transfer it from draft 1. And then it's going to ask me, do I have a full script or do I need to collate pages? Since my draft 2 is a full script, it's not just individual pages. I don't need to collate my pages. I'm going to press next. Then it's going to ask me what layers do I want to transfer. I showed you the layers menu. So I'm just going to select all because I want all my notes to transfer. And then I press begin. It analyzes the new script. It analyzes the old script. And then now draft 2 has all of my notes. What's really amazing is that it will also give me like a quick overview of some of the things that have been deleted. So on page 2, stamp annotation missing near text, that lets me know that there's a change on page 2. On page 4, I believe Melissa, the character, is no longer included. So if I come back out to my script, as you can see here, all of my notes have transferred over. I can go into any layer. Let's go into my directing notes layer. As you can see here, my directing notes have transferred over. And then, as you can see here, these lines that I originally wrote that I wanted to be rewritten, I can click this little sticky note that gives me a quick overview about what changed. So the text used to say, quite sure, I'm afraid, but now it says, it sure is, I'm afraid. This text here, this can't be happening, was also something that I have rewritten. So I'm going to come out here into my production notes, and I'm going to show you how all of my production notes have transferred over as well. And then also here in my tone notes have transferred over as well. So back in the day when you used to do everything on paper, this is what that looked like for me. Here's a script, a bunch of different pages that I hand drew everything on. And then I would take sticky notes and I would paste them and hope that the stickiness stayed and didn't move around. And then when I got a new draft, I would have to manually repaste all my sticky notes and find where they should go. Highlighters and pins and paper clips and all that stuff. Everything is super easy in Scriptation. That is why this app was created. So next, I'm going to show you a couple of other things that are brand new features right within Scriptation. So if I come out into my directing notes layer, we now have a new feature called info layers. So if I click layers, at the bottom here, you can see that I can now toggle on revision colors. I can toggle on large scene numbers, scene dividers, 8th page count, and dialogue numbers. This is what that looks like. So if I toggle all of these things on, Scriptation has done this work that I used to do by hand for me. Now all of my scene numbers are super big. I can see them. As you can see here, I have scene dividers that lets me know very quickly where my scene stops and starts. I have 8th page count. So for the directors or DPs or ADs in the room who like to do math and do an analysis that lets you know how long something is going to take to shoot, we have a cheat sheet here. No more having to bring out your ruler. It can do that work for you. If you are in sound, if you are a script supervisor, if you, for whatever reason, if you work in live stage management and you need to deal with dialogue numbers very specifically, we now have a easy way to number the dialogue. So that way, if you're missing something in your coverage, you can easily find that as well. And I'm going to show you what that looks like for the revision colors. So in my draft 2, they didn't label it with any new colored pages. But if I come out here into this other script, as you can see here, I have pink pages and I have blue pages. So I love this feature because I now have a quick overview about what the newest notes are versus the old version of a script. So as you may be familiar with, first you get your whites, then you get your blues and your pinks and your yellows and your greens. So if my script is huge, I have an option to be able to see with just like one visual cue where the pink pages are, where the blue pages are. No need to do that anymore manually. That work is all done for you. A couple of other really cool things that come in handy for me is that you can make sides within Scriptation. So if I come here into this page manager tool right at the top right, I click that. This shows me an overview of all my pages. I can bookmark my pages if I want to quickly jump to a specific scene, and I can show all of the pages that are bookmarked only. This is all of the pages as well. If I come up here into sides, I can click sides, and then I can choose what pages of this script or what scenes from the script that I want to change into sides. So if I come here and here, that's going to be my sides. Then I press make. It's going to ask me how I want to name those sides. It will ask me where I want to save it to. And now, as you see here, I have a document with just the scenes that I'm shooting for that day. Or let's say I'm doing casting and I need to send out sides. No more having to open up my script in preview and then manually delete pages and then re-export it again as another PDF. I can do all of that right within Scriptation. What makes Scriptation different than other annotation apps on the market is that you can intelligibly read your screenplay within Scriptation. If you bring Scriptation, or if you bring your script into like GoodNotes or Notability, PDF Expert, your document is flat. So yes, you can take all of your notes by hand, but that app is not going to know what scene description is versus character dialogue, or scene headers versus like action lines. Why it's cool that Scriptation knows that is we have an auto highlight tool. So if I come up here into highlight, it will ask me if I just want to highlight all of these different things. So let's say I toggle all these things on. I come in here in a draft 2. I can turn all of these things on. And as you can see, now all of that is highlighted with just one click of a button. I can also change the color for what I want that to be. Let's say I want my action lines to be green. Let's say I'm doing a table read and I am the narrator. This makes it super easy for me to prep for that table read. So now no more getting confused about what I need to read versus what somebody else needs to read. Another great thing about the highlight tool is that I can individually highlight all the characters in my script if I want. It detects this for you. You do not have to type in your characters. You do not have to like tell it where to go. Once you import your script into Scriptation, it detects all of those characters. I can toggle all of this on, just like I showed you before. I can also change whatever I want the colors to be, and that makes it super easy for me. I used to manually do this, and it would take me hours, and now I can just do it with one click of a button. Okay, and the last thing that I'm going to show you, because Scriptation is very big, it has a bunch of different tools, and I really encourage you to go in and play with it and figure out the type of things that make the most sense for you. But let's say you're an actor, or let's say you're a production executive, or let's say you're a writer, and it's time to just simply read your script or have your script read aloud to you. I can come here into this plus menu, which brings up a bunch of different other modes. I'm going to go here into this reader mode. That gets rid of all the format with no margins. It makes it super easy to read. I can come here and I can press play. Let me turn this off. And then now my script will just scroll. So let's say I'm in a table read and this is the pace that we're going. I don't have to like manually turn the pages. I can just have it scroll for me. Let's say I want my script read aloud to me. I'm in the car on my way to set and I'm trying to get the script in my bones, in my DNA. I can come here into this character settings menu and I can actually customize the voices for each of my different characters. So as you can see here, I have the option to download some premium voices from all different places across the world. If my character has a UK accent, or if my character has an Irish accent, I can go in and I can choose a voice. I can download it to my iPad or whatever device I'm using, and then I can make sure that Rachel's voice is read in this character. So that comes super in handy when it's time to have a table read in your pocket and hear your script read aloud to you. Let's say I'm an actor and it's time for me to rehearse my lines. I can actually go into my character that I'm playing, and I can toggle on that I want to rehearse as this character. This is like one of my favorite features about Scriptation. We have what we call a voice cue, which can detect when you start or stop your line. This is what that looks like. I just got word that another script revision is on the way.
Kidding.
I wish I was.
This can't be happening.
It sure is, I'm afraid.
You hear lots of changes?
So as you can see, I'm reading with characters right within the app. It can detect when I start and stop my line. So if I leave a long pause in between my line, it won't skip to the next line. So no more having to record my lines with voice memo on my phone and leave some time for my scene partner to say their lines, and then we send it back and forth to each other. And then when it comes time to practice and you're in the mode, and then the timing is wrong and you have to bring it into Premiere and re-edit the timing. No, you can do everything right within Scriptation. You can also like change how fast or slow a character reads. You can adjust the pitch, the volume, and like I showed you, you can also adjust like the character voices. When you're in the rehearse mode, you can also turn on line reminders before or after, which leaves time for you to go back and check whether or not you got the line right. You can loop your scene or the entire script, and you can also add a slate if that will help you, so that way you can set and get in your right headspace and then start performing your lines. And then you've read your script, you have your lines memorized. Now it's time to record a self-tape, because the casting director is like, I need your tape by 10 p.m. Otherwise, I'm going with somebody else. You have nobody to read with you. I can go into the record mode. And now I can record my self-tapes right within Scriptation. So let's say I don't have my lines memorized and I can read straight to camera. This allows me to read my lines. It's 36 pages.
Script itself is only 30 pages, including title pages.
So just like I showed you in the rehearse mode, you can record your self-tape with readers right within the app. Let's say I want it to be this aspect ratio and I have my backdrop behind me and I'm looking off camera. I can do the same thing. I can have no video preview if I want, but all of that is included to help you, whether you're an actor or whether or not you're a director and you're working with actors. Casting, these tools are specifically for you. And then finally, I can also show you that if you're a script supervisor, we have lining tools. You can also customize like which specific modes you want to be on your toolbar, so that way you can quickly toggle between different modes. And let's say I specifically want to adjust my settings. I can come down here into the settings mode. I can choose to have my script be double-sided, so that way I can see my script side by side with each other. And you may ask, Whitney, how did you bring this director's plan into Scriptation? Like, how do you add additional pages? If I come here into my page manager, I can go into edit, and then I can choose add. So it's going to ask me what I want to add. I want to add what we call a facing page. As you know, scripts are typically printed single-sided. So that way, when you have your production binder open, on the right side, you have your script page, and on the left side, you have a blank page. So that way you can write your notes. So you can also do that infinitely within Scriptation. I can come here and add. It's going to ask me where I want to add it. Let's say I want to add it here. And say I want to add another page here. I can save that. Now I come out of my page manager. So this is what it looked like when I added a page in. This is what it looks like with the blank page on the side. And then I can go into my images, my photo library. I can bring in those storyboards. And now side by side, right next to my script page, I can have my storyboard page. Or my mood boards, if that's what I want to do. Or whatever sort of reference images I want to bring in. Anything that helps me better tell this story. Okay, I think that's almost everything. So what I like to do is showcase what I believe is the most premium version of what you can do with your script when you break it down. This was sent to us by a DP based in Australia. His name is Rob Draper. He has done a ton of stuff and very iconically DP'd on Creepshow. And so this is what he does with his scripts. For the DPs in the room, or for the people who like to draw things by hand, really tactical. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to do things digitally because I like the feeling of having a piece of paper in my hand. This is what that looks like in the flesh. He has hand-drawn with his pencil, with all of the tools that we have in Scriptation, his shadow side, his key side, his f-stops, his t-stops, the blocking. He's brought in images from Artemis Pro and Cadridge, Sunseeker, to let him know where the sun is going to be on the day. He brings in images from Previs Pro, where he's done his storyboards. He also likes to bring in images from his location scouts. I know a lot of times art department on the day when you're doing your location scout, you take pictures of everything and then you put together your little art department tech packets or your location packets. You can do all of that right within Scriptation. This is what that could look like. You can work with storyboards. You can work with whatever images you want. You can draw on images that you bring in. Again, the world is your oyster there as well. So this is an example of what it looks like to the maximum capacity. But again, once you go in and you play with Scriptation and you figure out what your prep process is, you will discover that there is a tool that teaches you how to do the thing that you want to figure out how to do. Everything is right within the app. And it's amazing because a lot of the new features that we just launched were specifically requested by real users. And we're constantly updating our app to be more efficient no matter what department that you're in. So yes, that is Scriptation. I would love to see if there are any questions that I can answer while you have me here. Just let me know. Okay, let's see some questions. Okay, is there a way to share your notes? Yes, absolutely. Let me go back and reshare my screen. So whether or not you want to share your whole script or whether or not you want to just share a specific layer, you can do both of those things within Scriptation. So if I come back here into my draft 2, if I come into layers, I can share individual layers. So at the top here, you can see this little share icon. I press share. I'm going to export a PDF. If the other person I'm sharing it to also has Scriptation, I can also export an SLF, which is just a Scriptation file. And then I export that. It will ask me what layers I want to export. I can choose all of them, or let's say I only want to share my production notes layer to my producer. I click share. And then it will ask me how I want to share that. They're standing right next to me. I can airdrop them. I can email them. I can save it to my iCloud device. I can save it to my Dropbox. I can open it up in other apps in whichever way I want to share. So let's say I want to share my whole script, all of my annotations. I come up here into this share icon, and then it will ask me what pages I want to share. For me, I'm going to share all of them. It's going to ask me if I want all my annotations to remain editable or if I want to flatten them. So if I keep the annotations, that means when I share this document, that person will be able to open it up in Scriptation or another app, and those annotations remain editable. So if I click share, same thing. I can either share it via AirDrop, text message, email, whichever way makes the most sense. Okay, let's see what else I got here. Is there a history tool where I can pull up older notes? Yes and no. I guess it just depends on what specifically you want to pull up. Like, this is how I would do that. So if I go back here into my menu, I have all of my documents. So I can easily just click on the document for the notes that I want to reference. And the other thing that I can show you is a comparison tool. So once I've transferred my notes, I can also export our like script comparison file, and then this will show me changes that have been made to the script, whether or not lines are no longer in there, whether or not like certain things have changed in terms of the scene description. So that's another thing that you can take advantage of, and you can do that infinitely as well, no matter how many drafts that you get. Question, as an aspiring actor who has started doing auditions, this will be a great tool. Is this within the same app or do I need a different app? This is all within the same app. So we have different tiers of the subscription. There is a monthly subscription or there's a yearly subscription. The yearly subscription is only 99 bucks. I see a lot of people that will charge that to their kit fee or charge that to their production. But yes, once you have Industry Pro, you have access to all of the tools that I showed you. There is no upcharge for additional tools. It's all comes with the Industry Pro license. And all of these modes you have available to you. Tagging, transfer, annotate, highlight, layers. And I come down here, rehearse, record, read, lining, and analyze. All that's within the same subscription. While I'm waiting to see if any more questions come in, the other thing I can say is that we have other tiers as well. Like, let's say you are a production executive, or you are a showrunner of a show, or producer of a show, line producer, UPM, and you want to get a bunch of licenses so that your entire crew has access to Scriptation. You can get what we call a team subscription. And what team does is it allows you to share your layers live within the app. So it's different than, let's say you're working on Google Docs, where I'm editing my script and then you see the edits that I'm making real time. The reason that we don't do that is because, excuse me, we don't want somebody to accidentally delete something that you need. We know how precious this is. We've run into too many times where something like that has happened. So on a team subscription, if I'm done with my notes and I want to now share that to my team, let's say I'm the production designer and I want to share my art notes, my art department, and I'm on a team subscription, I can actually share my layer. And then if they have subscription open, anybody or their team subscription open in their app, they will get a notification that says a new layer is available. This is what we call live layers. And then once I press yes, that I want to bring that layer into my script, now I have all of my boss's notes right within my script and I can continue to do my job well. We developed that tool specifically for SNL. They move so fast, it's live, so they don't really have time to reshare their script via email over and over and over again. They just want to be able to say, send this wide, and then other people on my team can open it up within the app without needing to do all that airdropping or emailing. I don't see any more new questions, so I'll just show you a couple of other things really quick. Let's see here. So I am going to plug some of our resources. If you go to www.scriptation.com, that will bring you to our website where you can access our blog, you can access our help desk, you can access a paper savings calculator. That'll tell you about the ways in which Scriptation is helping to create a more eco-friendly world. If I have questions about anything that the app does, like how something specifically works, I can type in layers or I can type in tagging, and then a bunch of articles will pull up that teaches me about how to do that thing. It will even have video tutorials that have step-by-step guides about how to do everything that I just showed you. We have that for every single feature within Scriptation. We also have a beefy YouTube page where we post webinars like the one that I'm doing here with you today. We did a Scriptation 101 webinar that goes into every single detail of the app, way more in depth than I just showed you. This was just the top line overview. We've done webinars with DPs. So if that's what your craft is and you want to hear from a DP about how they use Scriptation, we've done it with script supervisors. We've done it with art directors. Again, it's just a free resource completely available to anybody who's seeking that. And then we also have a Canny account. If you're not familiar, Canny allows you as a user to go in and request directly to our development team what features you would love to see in Scriptation. So if you go to www.scriptation.com/wishlist, that's going to pull up our Canny account. You can request features or you can upvote features that other people have requested. And we do actively read those every single day. And the new info layers feature that I showed you with the large scene numbers and the revision colors was requested by hundreds of our users. And so we just had to get that out ASAP. So we're really excited about that. We have a great relationship with our Scriptation Nation fan base. So we would love to invite you to join us. You can follow us anywhere you're social. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Twitter, or X, I should say. And we're constantly posting pro tips and tips and tricks. And we feature spotlights of up and coming creators or people that we think you should know. We work with a bunch of directors all across the industry, from the Michael Spillers to the Tessa Blakes. We've worked with actors like Kathy Bates and Michael B. Jordan, and different shows like Severance and House of Dragon and Shogun and Hacks, and pretty much any show that is on TV, somebody on that crew is using Scriptation. So we have just a few more minutes. If anybody has any last minute questions, I'm here. I'm also a TV director, so if you have questions about how, as a television director, you use Scriptation, let me know. Somebody who was an actor had questions, so that's what I'm here for. How do I use it as a director? So let me just pull up a script that I broke down to just show you. I had the great privilege of shadowing on a show called Criminal Minds. And this is what my script breakdown looked like once I fully broke down this script. I brought in my schedules for the day. I brought that to the top of my script so that way I can bookmark this page and quickly reference that and check off the scenes that I finished shooting for the day. I added so many different facing pages where I hand drew the way my sets look. Please don't judge my handwriting. It's awful, but that's why we have a text tool within Scriptation. And I wrote out my blocking. I did all of my shot lists right within Scriptation, from my master all the way down to my coverage. I used an app called Shot Designer where I was able to indicate where I wanted my cameras and bring in sort of different sets. And then I took a screenshot of that and I brought that into Scriptation. And then I did all my shot lists right within the app on my facing pages here. And I put them side by side with whatever scene that I specifically was breaking down. As you can see here, I've done a lot of tagging, props and vehicles and cast, etc., etc. And this show was fun because a lot of it was on location. So I didn't really have a lot of director's plans or like actual set pieces that I can bring in. So I had to do a lot of hand drawing, which is why I love having my Apple Pencil and being able to just draw by hand. It helps me go super quick. So as you can see here, before we had the info layers feature, I actually had to hand draw my large scene numbers. No more do I have to do that. I can just toggle that on. But yeah, you can see here, this is how I break down my script, everything that I showed you. I would bring in reference images from the actual show, so that way I can see how they shoot it. And then when I was figuring out the way that I wanted my script to be broken down, I kind of was able to use that to help me figure out how to shoot a bunch of characters around a round table, for example. I brought in a mood board with reference images of what I was thinking that I wanted more stylistic shots because the show had such a specific cinematic look to it. And so as you can see here, I brought in some reference images from my shot list. So that way, when I hand drew it, I had something to show my DP, like, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think about this? Can we do this? Can we put the camera here? Will the car allow us to do this? So yeah, this is what my script looks like as a director. Typically, I don't share my notes with anybody in the crew unless they ask for it. Like I might share it with my AD. So it didn't really matter that it's hard to read because only I'm looking at it. But it's really cool because I even started to go in and do what I call a line cut, where I would actually label what shots I wanted when certain lines were said. And then I exported this and sent it to my editor. So not only did they have all my shot lists and my vision, but they also had the way that I wanted to cut the scene. Another thing I'll show you really quick is that what comes with Scriptation is what we call Showcase, which has some scripts that are already written and available to you to either practice with or just read if that's your thing. So if I click into Academy Awards, with every single Scriptation subscription, it comes with access to that year's Academy Award nominated or winning scripts. So as you can see here, I have all the adapted screenplay scripts from this year. And then I also have the original screenplay from this year. And then if I download those, they kind of live in my app forever. So last year, I downloaded American Fiction, which was my favorite script from that year. And I just have that to be able to read if I want to practice directing or if I'm a screenwriter and I want to see how the pros do it. The other thing that comes in Showcase is access to our Showcase scripts. So Scriptation has a screenwriting competition called Showcase. We have a feature-length screenplay category, we have a short category, and we have a teleplay category. So when you click into any of those, you can actually see the scripts that won from the past year. And that's really great if you're like, okay, I'm writing, I am an aspiring screenwriter, I want to submit to different festivals, different competitions. What does a winning script actually look like? It's available to you right within Scriptation. Okay, let's see if we got anything else. No, I think that's it. All right, so that brings us to the end of this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Scriptation is a very big tool, but once you get in there and you start playing with it, you realize like, oh, this is actually really easy to figure out. It's very intuitive in that way, very user-friendly. If you are the type of person that uses a pen and has your script and you're writing notes on that script, you can do all of that digitally. and not have to fumble through 1,000,001 pages, not have to worry about setting your script down, and then we move to a new setup and all of a sudden your script has disappeared. You have everything right within Scriptation. If you have an Industry Pro account, you can link your account to your Dropbox, your Google Drive, and that allows you to sync your files across devices. So if I'm on a plane and I'm headed to another state where I'm going to be shooting, I can create all my notes in Scriptation. And when I land, those notes are also synced to my laptop and to my phone. So no longer am I losing my notes. Everything is on all my devices, and I am super prepared to go in and direct or write or act or shoot my script. Follow us on social media. We're really excited to build this community of Scriptation Nation users. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing all the great and amazing work that you do now that you